Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Capsule here, and I just received my Everdrive 64X7. I'm going to do a quick unboxing, and then I'm going to go through and show some footage with my input and a little review about the product. So as you can see, here's the box. Um, it looks better than I would have expected it to come in. It's a nice little box. There's the backside, underside. You know, keep it nice and safe while it's being transported, and you can actually keep it in there too if you want, so it doesn't get messed up. Inside the box there's some padding on the top lid and around the cartridge to keep it from getting damaged during transport. I did a kind of removal of some of the seals just for the sake of this video, so it wouldn't take too long, but yeah. So it comes in this sleeve. I had a seal on it. I already removed that, but we're going to go and take this off and see what the Everdrive 64 X7 looks like. So there's the underside where the board is. It's a pretty nice sticker, not kind of cheap like the American stickers on N64 cards. Left side is the micro SD card for your loading ROMs, and on the right side is a developer port. Originally I thought it was mini USB, but it turns out it's micro USB, so that's, you know, interesting. And there's the back with the caution information and everything. Alright, so here is the UI, the OS, after I installed everything onto the SD card. There's a few options you have here. One is the ability to change the background of the menu. There's some cheat codes and all your saves, as well as the NES emulator, which is cool, I guess, but not really necessary since there are other means of playing NES games, I guess. So you get two background images and the ability to load other ones if you want. The first one that they give you is this one right here, which is the Everdrive 64 controller looking background. And then there's another one that they give you, stock image, and that is kind of like this rainbow lines computer board looking one. And if you want, you can just completely remove all backgrounds by pushing Z, going into this main menu, and right here you have a bunch of options: turn off cheats and stuff, turn off the background. And what that does, when you turn off the background, it's all solid blue and more clear to view, in my opinion. And then also you put your ROMs in your ROM folder, whatever folder that you want. So yeah, pretty easy to install. Just drag and drop stuff, and I had a little trouble with adding my own images, but I'll figure that out later. So one of the first games I wanted to show off on the Everdrive 64X7 was Bomberman 64, because on a lot of emulators, this game just does not want to run for some reason, like at full speed and accurate. You'll get a lot of desync between video and audio, especially here doing the opening sequence. There's a lot of audio being desynced here on most emulators, everything that I've played so far, except for the official ones by Nintendo on the Wii U. And yeah, Everdrive 64 is not an emulator. Obviously it's a flash card, so you're just running things on original hardware, so it should be running as intended, which, as you can see here, it is. Just how you remember it, pretty much. It'll be running the same frame rates and all that as it would on original hardware. That's the one drawback of actually using the Everdrive 64 compared to emulators, is that since it's running on original hardware, it's just running as intended, as it was meant to be. So you're not going to get those smooth 60 frames per second as you would on some emulators, but you are going to get more compatibility opposed to using emulators, obviously, and you're going to get, you know, better gameplay experience as using some emulators and stuff. I use a lot of emulators, ranging from, you know, Project 64 to Moopin on Android and other injection methods on Wii U, but this is by far the best experience I've had playing video games for the N64. Alright, so here's Killer Instinct, another game that I wanted to showcase because this game has major graphical issues with the sky. and here on the main menu, as well as the character selection screen on a lot of emulators. Almost every emulator I've played it on is just completely terrible when it comes to the graphical glitches and stuff. So I just wanted to show off what it looks like on the Everdrive 64X7. That blink there was just my it's just the capture. I'm sorry, not the capture card. The Everdrive changing resolutions. So I'm just jumping around showing off that the sky is not glitching out like it normally would on most emulators, and it's looking pretty good. You know, this is the way that I remember Killer Instinct Gold on Nintendo 64, not all glitchy and stuff. All right, so here's another scene with the sky working as intended graphically. It's not all glitching out. Normally on emulators it would be like tweaking out and going crazy right now. All the clouds up there, and it's cool to actually play this game the way that it was intended on original hardware without, you know, the graphical glitches and stuff. So that's great. Another game, Mario Tennis. Oh my gosh, this game is a nightmare on most emulators just to get even like stable and working correctly without any graphical glitches and then without any like audio desync. One of the worst games to probably try and get running in terms of the games that you would actually want to play. But it's looking great, you know, no problems here. Compatibility on Everdrive 64 in general, and especially the X7, is extremely high. I think they rated it at like 99% with most games out there. So it's working great, you know. That opening sequence right there is just awesome. No graphical glitches whatsoever, and it's going to be a pleasure to play 4 players Mario Tennis once I get together with some of my friends and play one of these weekends. But yeah, awesome game. Graphics look great. Gameplay is awesome, and it's running smooth and as intended. And that really makes me happy. So here's a scene where I show off one of the graphical glitches you'll see on like a lot of emulators. Is there's a camera that zooms in on Peach here. On some emulators that doesn't render correctly, and you'll just see nothing but a blank box there, just all black, and you won't see Peach zoomed in there. So that I just want to show off that's what it looks like here on Everdrive 64 X7, and everything's looking great.
Change course.
Alright, Super Smash Brothers, another game where the audio desyncs from the video, especially on the opening sequence here. It's running smooth. Everything in this video is pretty much going to be running smooth and as intended. I'm just going to point out some of the things that you would see on mostly every emulator out there, and try and point those out. So yeah, some emulators up to this point work really good with Smash Brothers, but as you get a little bit deeper into the introduction, especially right here, the audio would really desync for Smash Brothers, and you can tell because it just wouldn't match what's going on the screen. Especially right here, it lags a lot where all the Yoshis come out. But it's working really well on the Everdrive, working just as intended. One of the best games on Nintendo 64 for sure, and to get it running flawlessly is a real treat. By far, is one of the best games. Just gonna show off a little gameplay here. It gets a little bit laggy on some emulators when there's 4 players on the screen or more things, moving objects. But it's working great. It's working as intended. Obviously, it's not working at 60 frames per second like on some emulators, but it's working as intended in terms of actual hardware. So, which is really awesome. Definitely gonna enjoy playing this with friends when I actually get the chance to. I have fond memories of playing this and all these other multiplayer games on Nintendo 64 when I was in my teenage years. So can't wait for the awesome games that are going to happen from the Everdrive 64. Alright, we have another game which is a pain in the ass to get running on emulators, and it's Top Gear Rally. One of the best racing games on the system. In my opinion, it's right up there with probably the best in terms of actual racing. And I don't consider like Mario Kart in the same category as certain racing games like Top Gear Rally and World Driver and some of those other like more realistic games. But in terms of like those realistic games, Top Gear Rally is definitely one of the best racers on the system. And it's working really great. I mean, look at the footage. There's nothing for me to really complain about. This game is a pain in the ass to get running at a smooth frame rate. The audio is terrible on emulators, and it's just a complete mess. But as you can see here, it's working really awesome. And it's going to be awesome playing this game over again on actual hardware without any graphical glitches, audio glitches, anything like that. Game crashing, you know, just stupid stuff that you don't want to deal with when working with emulators. And I'm glad that there's such a device as the Everdrive 64 for fans of the N64 to play their games on without having to deal with any issues. But yeah, here's more footage of Top Gear Rally. Working great. Nothing really else to show here. The game is working fine, and I'm glad that it's working. Alright, we have another game which was kind of annoying to play on most emulators. I mean, there's only like one emulator that I found where this problem didn't exist. And it was the Android emulator, Lupin 64 Plus FZ, I believe. But when you're playing the game, there's this gray box that will bounce in and off of the screen occasionally, once in a while. And I guess that's just to prevent people from enjoying the game if they pirated it or whatever. But that's obviously not happening here on the Everdrive 64. And apparently, to my surprise, it's not happening on the Android emulator as well, which is awesome. But here we have it running on original hardware, and it's working great. I don't have to deal with that stupid ass box bouncing in off of the screen, getting in my way, can't see anything. So that's awesome. Great gameplay. One of the first games to pioneer this style of this genre of game. I think this game even came out before Metal Gear Solid, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not really 100% sure on that, but that's what I've been hearing. And it's a great game, you know, to have it running without that stupid box bouncing, you know, in and off of the screen, getting in your way, trying to, like, you know, annoy the shit out of you. You know, it's awesome to actually play the game and the way that it was intended, and all of its 64-bit glory. Shoot this guy through the roof. Get out of here. Yeah, I really like the sneaking around and you know, espionage games. Those are really fun. Alright, so I was talking about earlier World Driver Championship. Now this game I could not get to boot at all on some emulators. It would get to the point where it would show like the introduction screen and, like, you know, the developers and that, and then once you get past that part to get to the main menu, it would just crash. It happens on like mostly every emulator that I've tried it on, but it's working really great here. No problems whatsoever. One of the best racing games on Nintendo 64 by far. This one's a little bit more tricky to handle in terms of the boss games. Top Gear Rally, in my opinion, handles a little bit better. But this game is like, in my opinion, probably more realistic. I guess you'd have to be. It's more like um, a simulation racing game, so you really have to pay attention to like your top speed and what corners are coming up, because if not, you're gonna really crash a lot in this game. But if you can understand like what speed you're supposed to be going and hitting around these corners, then you can really enjoy this game. It's really fun, and it handles really good. It's just, in my opinion, for a video game, I think Top Gear Rally handles a little bit better as a video game. But it's a really great game. Great graphics, great courses, tracks, I should say. A lot of cool cars. A lot of options, and like a lot of things to do. A lot of replay value in this game. I highly recommend that game. Alright, so here we're getting into some of the games that are not available on normal means to buy retail, or as you can remember. This game was not even released. It's called 40 Winks. And this is a prototype of the game that's nearly finished, almost 100% finished. And it's working on the Everdrive 64, and it's a really cool game. The graphics and the frame rate's actually pretty good. I really enjoyed the first few minutes of the game that I was playing it, and it has some voice acting going on, and that's cool. You don't see a lot of voice acting in N64 games, so to see one with really good graphics, gameplay, and frame rate is awesome. You can pick the boy or the girl. Only 2 playable characters in this game, and I didn't really get too deep into it. I was just kind of testing things out for the sake of this video and showing off some of the cool things that Everdrive can do. But it handles really well, and I didn't see or feel any problems as of playing this game the first few minutes. But yeah, it's cool to be able to play some of these games that were unreleased. And some of them I've never even played before at all. Or seen at all, I should say. Here's me just beating up some zombies. One of the first areas of the game. I really like how the lightning is flashing there. It kind of gives you like a sense of realism. You're in a thunderstorm, and it's raining. It's dark and the lightning's flashing. Kind of gets you more immersed in a way. Alright, so here's one of my favorite games of all, Custom Robo for the N64. And the reason why I'm showing off this game is because this is actually English translated. This was patched. And that's really cool because it's somewhat of like a kind of like an RPG, not really. You have to progress through the game, the story mode, to unlock different parts so you can use them in multiplayer. And obviously it's a pain in the ass when you're trying to do that, and the game's all in Japanese. So as you can see here, the menus are all in English. All the parts that you can get from your Robo, they're all in English when you're trying to customize your Robo. All the details, when you're trying to figure out what the parts actually do. It's all fully translated. And it's working really well on original hardware. It works on emulators too, but when I tried to play this game on an emulator, it would crash like a lot. With the patch installed. So without the patch, it works fine. But with the English patch, the game crashes, like especially at the end of the game, a lot. But on original hardware, apparently it doesn't have that issue. So I'm gonna go through the game and play it again on original hardware and see if there's any of those issues with the game crashing, and having to replay a lot of areas from the previous save. And from what I remember is the game would crash a lot even in multiplayer when you're trying to like customize your Robo. It would just crash in the menus. So I'm going to go ahead and test that out here on the Everdrive 64 on original hardware and see if it does that at all. Because if it doesn't, then that's awesome, and it's probably the best way to play custom Robo English translation is on Everdrive 64 on original hardware. So you can see me talking to what I believe in the story is this main character's cousin, and he's taking him to the local custom Robo arena where the local players play, kind of like an arcade, and he's showing them around. Alright, here's another cool patch that came out not too long ago. This is the Super Mario 64 split screen multiplayer patch. And what this does is allow you to play co-op multiplayer in Super Mario 64 split screen, so that way you don't have to share one. There's another patch out there from the same hacker where you would share the screen, and one player would control Mario, one player would control Luigi, and it was cool for its time, but after a while playing it, it just got really annoying. But yeah, the author wrote this patch, and it's really cool. I was playing it with my daughter, and she really loves Super Mario 64 multiplayer, especially this split screen one that came out recently. So can't wait to get in there with her and go through the game and try and complete it and see what that's all about with the split screen going on. So I'm just showing off, you know, what it's like to play split screen. The one thing that I noticed is that the resolution is definitely lower than the normal resolution, and the frame rate is lower as well. I'm not sure what the resolution and the frame rate is for Super Mario 64 normally, but the one thing that I did notice is that those are definitely smaller values than what they are from the original release. But being that it's multiplayer and one player can play as Luigi, I don't really care about that so much. It's definitely playable, and it doesn't really bother me that much, but it's something to remember when you're trying to play this game. So yeah, showing off Mario going off here, and then playing as Luigi. I'm not playing two players. I'm trying to make this video and show off what it's like, so you know, obviously Mario's not moving up there, but here's Luigi moving around, and it's cool, man. I mean, I never thought I'd see the day where I'd see Super Mario 64 in multiplayer, and this is one of the things that I really wanted to happen back in the day. So yeah, my personal opinion on the Everdrive 64 X7, if you don't have one, is if you want to play N64 games without any problems, without any of the hardships of emulation and stuff, and having to deal with compatibility and all that, definitely pick it up if you're a huge Nintendo 64 fan. I'm one of the biggest Nintendo 64 fans on the planet, and by far, this is my favorite way of playing N64 games, just because I don't have to deal with any of the bullshit with emulators and compatibility, graphical glitches, games just not working at all. You know, that shit just really annoys me. But you know, having this option for original hardware wasn't something that I was considering a few years ago. And like now that, you know, I realize that, you know, emulation is just a pain in the ass for N64. I realize this is probably the best way to play, and I invested, you know, a lot of money and time into research and trying to get these games all working on N64. So I highly recommend it. The one thing that I ran into in terms of problems with the X7 was the ability to load your own background images on the OS menu. I don't know what's going on, but every time I try to load up my own background image, it would give me an error. So I'll try and figure that out and maybe do a follow-up on that. But yeah, Everdrive 64 X7, really great, love it, highly recommended. If you don't have an N64, go get one. Get one of these, and get yourself a retro kit as well.